Mama, I got bad news, bad news. I've been rolling with some bad dudes, bad dudes. I've been trying to get a bag too.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Ashes to Awesome podcast, Rising in Recovery. Our podcast provides light, hope, and understanding about addiction and mental health to those living within that life and the people who love them. This episode is brought to you by the Nate D Foundation. Through public awareness and charity events, their goal is to raise funds to provide counseling and sponsor individuals to attend trauma therapy and treatment. Learn more or donate at nate-d.ca. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Ramble on the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, and today in studio with me is, of course, my lovely co-host, Dr. Lisa. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm very good, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing great today. I'm doing great. And our special guest today is Todd Rennenbohm, who has a hit podcast called Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. He's also written a children's book called Sometimes Daddy Cries, and that's about... We're going to let you tell us what that's about when we get to that. How's that sound? Right?
Sure.
Yeah. About mental health anyway. So, Todd, we were talking beforehand about how, we don't have a defined topic for today. But it is kind of a recovery-based podcast. So what's your story? How is it that you're sitting here today on the show and, that you have yours and all that stuff?
Well, usually I talk for about an hour and a half about my story, but I'll try to not go that deep into it. But I basically, when I was a kid, you hear this all the time. You feel like you didn't fit in. You felt different. I'm from a small town. You've only got a handful of people to make friends with. And I was friends with people in high school and growing up and stuff. But even in that group, it was like, at a certain point, the only thing we had in common was partying.
You didn't have that
drinking.
mustache back then to woo them all, so, right? Yes.
I did not. I had friends that could grow mustaches, but I certainly couldn't. But so it turned into, and anytime I wanted to bond or make connections, it was always involved around drinking. When I was younger, this is stuff that I'm just kind of dealing with now, but I had some sexual trauma when I was younger. I don't call it abuse or anything because it was child on child. So, but I do call it trauma because, it was stuff kids shouldn't be doing. And every time that happened, I was always drunk too. So, it was weird. It was almost like drinking was this magic potion because the next day no one would talk about it. It was like, oh, cool. We all forgot about it. We don't have to talk about it. It was like this magic potion. And that, half the time I don't even remember exactly what happened. So we just don't talk about it. I don't have to deal with feelings. Great. We move on. And, the next 30 times in a row, it's partying. And then there's that incident again would happen once in a while. So that was going on. First time I got high was also with some sexual trauma with a boss of mine. I was working at a non-for-profit, and it was a very well-respected lady who was the director, and she liked her marijuana, and I really wanted to impress my new boss, and we got high, and she's probably 30 years older than me, and she tried kissing me and stuff, and it was just this really weird situation. I was always kind of, the more sensitive kid. I was more into the arts than I was sports, stuff like that. So there's kind of my base. Then in my 20s, I started playing in bands and traveling and doing stuff. And I don't know if people realize this is something that's not talked about a lot, but in the music scene, there's drinking. And there's drugs. And when you're in a bar, literally 7 days a week, playing and touring and traveling around and stuff, it's like you don't have to get up. You don't start working till like 11 o'clock at night. So you can get as drunk as you want afterwards between 2 and 6 in the morning and still function. It's not like I was doing actual work. I just had to drink some more and play my drums. It was pretty good. Yeah. And so anyway, that kind of ended. I moved back to Regina, and I found a nice lady. We eventually moved out of Regina. The band broke up and stuff. And I moved back to my hometown of Indian Head, Saskatchewan, and we bought a house for $34,000.
Wasn't that long ago, I'll bet, actually, right? Not,
It was about
relative
20
to the
years
rest of the
ago, I
country.
think.
Okay, yeah.
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 And it was around this time that, I was having a lot of anxiety growing up. In fact, I was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer when I was like grade 5. That's how bad my anxiety was.
It's not my 14 years old myself as well. I had an ulcer, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. You're the only other person I've ever heard say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course back then it was like you have a nervous child is what they called it, right? It wasn't anxiety. It was your boy is nervous. Here's Pepto-Bismol, right? So they they treated the physical part of it, but not what's causing this anxiety.
Who would have ever?
Well, are you
thought
open
to?
to? Are you open to sharing how old you are? Just because I'm trying to when I hear that the anxiety not getting diagnosed, I'm kind of wondering.
I'll let you
age-wise.
guess, and then I'll tell you.
Oh, he's a guy.
24. 24.
Come on,
I'm gonna guess you're about my age. I'm gonna say you're around 45.
I'm exactly 45.
Well,
Okay.
there you go. Right. Okay.
So we're all similar. I'm 44, so similar
Yeah,
age,
right.
all of us.
44,
Yeah.
45, 46.
Oh, you're just a baby.
As are you, Todd. I'm 46. So, yeah.
A middle child. Anyway.
I'm tall enough that by the time you see the bald spot, you're really committed. So you can't.
Yeah. That's why I wear. Yeah. If I took off the cans, you'd see it. But anyway. Now, where was I, Lisa? Oh, right.
We're
I had an
talking
ulcer.
about being a nervous child.
Right. So anyway, all through high school, I had anxiety and stuff. And I remember my last couple months of high school, I would not get out of bed. I was at my anxiety was kind of turning more into depression. And so anyway, during my 20s and in playing in the band and all this stuff, I would have moments of depression, but it was mostly anxiety. Anyway, when I moved back to my hometown with my lady, the anxiety and depression really turned more into anger, which is huge in my family. A lot of the males have anger issues, which I saw a meme a while ago that said anger is anxiety's bodyguard or depression's bodyguard, right? So it's that's just how men in my family dealt with it. So I was just waking up mad, going to work mad, coming home mad. Any little thing I'd fly off the handle. I'd burn my supper, and it was like being thrown across the room and stuff.
So can I just to interrupt? Sorry, Todd.
Sure. Yeah.
You're. You seem to be. You're a pretty big guy, right? And it's probably similar built to myself. It's not small anyway.
Okay. I'm the smallest of my family, but I come from a family of giants. So.
And so. Myself, I was never much I got past the hitting when I was like 18 kind of thing, right? But I still had a wicked temper for a long time, and it was like an emotional temper as opposed to like a physical thing. So yourself, was it kind of the same thing, or was it?
Yeah, I've never been in a fist fight in my life. I've never been violent.
Yeah.
I just fly off the handle and it's more like I'm using a screwdriver and it's it keeps slipping. It's and then the screwdriver goes into the wall.
Okay, I got you. I got you now. Yeah.
But if people piss me off, it's
okay.
Then I just shut down and I just leave. So anyway, I'm starting into anger, and I hated it. I'd rather, depression, anxiety is crippling and brutal, but that I could deal with better than anger, because anger, it's such a gross feeling. It's so embarrassing. You just feel like I don't know, and yeah, I feel inadequate in all those feelings, but for whatever reason, I'm not hurting anyone when I'm depressed or anxious. It's when I'm scaring people around me and being intimidating and stuff. It's just it's gross. But so anyway, I all my life I've been bouncing around from job to job to job to job. It's I've never had a job for more than 2 or 3 years at a time, or the same job. So anyway,
Was that because of anger? Was it kind of infiltrating your work and getting you fired, or?
No, not getting me fired, but it was more like I'd get angry and quit. It'd be I can't handle this place.
Blaze of glory. We just talked about this when I was on Dad's show. Yeah. Never leave a job without a blaze of glory, right? Everybody.
Yeah. Or Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Or I'd just get bored. I'd be like, no one's listening to me. I could run this place better. Fucking idiots. Bye. And then, and yeah, so I just move on. And so, yeah, every few years I have a different job. And then I started with the government, federal government here in Indian Head. There's, we used to have the PFRA, which is a tree nursery and a research farm and stuff. And once you get into the government, you could quit a job every 6 months, but stay in the government. You just move around, right? Different positions and stuff. So I was kind of bouncing around from position to position, applying for everything that I could because my coworkers would always piss me off. So it's like, well, I'm going to apply for that job instead. So I'll go over there and it's like, these people piss me off. But, I'm just bouncing around. Yeah. And around this time we started, my lady and I actually married and started having kids. And I was drinking probably, I'd say every night, binge drinking on the weekends, smoking pot more and more often, to the point that it became a nightly thing, and binge smoking on weekends. And I just was feeling completely and utterly unsatisfied in life, which, from the outside, it looked like I had the ideal life. I bought the house I grew up in. It was this beautiful 2.5-story, 100-year-old Victorian house. We completely gutted it, renovated it. I had 2 beautiful kids, a beautiful wife. It's a good government job, and I was fucking miserable. And I don't know why or how. I was just miserable. Eventually, I started opening up to a friend of mine, and she could relate. So I was like, oh, finally, like. I tried to talk about it with my wife, ish. Mostly I would just isolate internally and not say much. But when I did open up with her, I could tell that she just couldn't relate, or like she couldn't quite understand, right? So it was really refreshing to find someone that could relate, and we'd been friends for a few years. And so
how was that for you, Todd? Sorry, Lisa, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I also think it's scary as a spouse to sort of acknowledge that your spouse might be depressed or whatever, right? Like, especially, I don't know the dynamics, but you were working. So whether you were the breadwinner or just, an equal financial contributor to the household, still probably somewhat dependent on you. And I think for a spouse, it's like there's this one part of you that wants to be the friend and the support and acknowledge. And because I see this with patients, right? And I think then there's the other part that is afraid to acknowledge it. It's like, if I acknowledge it, is it going to become more real? And then how's it going to impact our family and our home and our life? And, so I almost wonder, for example, with your wife, she might have been better able to be a support to you if you were a friend. I think it's harder when it's a spouse because there's a lot of fear.
What a stupid observation.
Wow.
Terrible observation. Oh my God. I'm logging off. You could very well be right. Plus, I mean, as I found out later, she was also dealing with her own shit. And, she's a new mother and stuff. And plus, she had past trauma that I didn't know about that she was dealing with internally and stuff. And so
there's this angry motherfucker running around the house and, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it just is that idea, though, that when someone's in a case like that, like if she's got her own shit, right, then she needs you to be an anchor, right? So the minute that she admits that you're not steady, that's terrifying. So it's like, nope, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it because you need to be my anchor because I got my own stuff, right?
Yeah. And she was never rude about it. I could just see that it was like someone talking about the 1945 Stanley Cup. I just, my eyes glaze over. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't watch hockey. But they keep talking. It's like, okay. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of more the feeling.
I think what Lisa's referring to, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, generally that would manifest itself not in a rude way. Right, it would be even if the person is even aware if that's what they're doing.
Totally,
right?
I think it's often subconscious, right?
Yeah.
But
right.
it's just, I think it's almost like a form of denial, and it's denial because it's scary, and denial because they need you to be a strong support, a financial breadwinner, whatever it might be. I think it's just this subconscious defense and fear that if they acknowledge it, it's going to sort of take on a life, and they're like, I can't handle that, or our family can't handle that. And so I think it's most often subconscious and definitely not mean. I've never,
Right.
I don't know if I've ever seen it manifest in a mean way, but just more as this like fear and this defense that they have a hard time sort of being open to it when it's a
trauma
spouse.
of the whole thing then all of a sudden as well, right? Like another layer.
Yeah.
Sorry, so
Yeah.
we just kind of jumped on you. What I was
That's
going to
okay.
say before Lisa cut me off.
I'm
Just kidding,
rude
Lisa.
like that.
I love it when
I'm
you
rude
say
like
stuff. So you can talk about any damn you want. And now for a quick PSA brought to you by
Revolution Recovery, helping men recover and become their best selves through support and treatment. They've been there and they understand.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan Bathgate from Kaleidoscope Wednesdays. I wanted to bring a public service announcement to you today about Narcan, or also known as naloxone. These kits have saved so many lives over the years. I can attest for that. Being in the industry for so long, I can tell you since we've had the opioid crisis declared in 2016, it has saved thousands of lives, and I've watched it personally save hundreds of lives. These kits are small, easy to use. You can keep them in your glove box or in a cupboard in your home, and you never know when somebody's going to need them. If you have a hard time finding a Narcan kit in your area, just email us here at ashes2awesomepodcast@gmail.com. Throw Narcan in the subject line, tell us where you are, and we'll do the legwork to find that for you. If you wanted to send me a question for my Kaleidoscope Wednesdays, again, email ashes2awesomepodcast@gmail.com. We will read that question on air, and I'll do my best to answer it in a comprehensive way. That's all I have for now, and we'll go back to the show. Thanks for listening.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Ramble on the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, and today in studio with me is, of course, my lovely co-host, Dr. Lisa. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm very good, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing great today. I'm doing great. And our special guest today is Todd Rennenbohm, who has a hit podcast called Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. He's also written a children's book called Sometimes Daddy Cries, and that's about, we're going to let you tell us what that's about when we get to that. How's that sound, right?
Sure.
Yeah, about mental health anyway. So, Todd, we were talking beforehand about how, we don't have a defined topic for today, but it is kind of a recovery-based podcast. So what's your story? How is it that you're sitting here today on the show and, that you have yours and all that stuff?
Well, usually I talk for about an hour and a half about my story, but I'll
My
try
job,
to I'll try to not go that deep into it. But I basically, when I was a kid, you hear this all the time. You feel like you didn't fit in. You felt different. I'm from a small town. You've only got a handful of people to make friends with. And I was friends with people in high school and growing up and stuff, but even in that group, it was like, at a certain point, the only thing we had in common was partying.
You didn't have that
drinking.
mustache back then to woo them all, so, right? Yes.
I did not. I had friends that could grow mustaches, but I certainly couldn't. But so it turned into, and anytime I wanted to bond or make connections, it was always involved around drinking. When I was younger, this is stuff that I'm just kind of dealing with now, but I had some sexual trauma when I was younger. I don't call it abuse or anything because it was child on child. So, but I do call it trauma because, it was stuff kids shouldn't be doing. And every time that happened, I was always drunk too. So, it was weird. It was almost like drinking was this magic potion because the next day no one would talk about it. It was like, oh, cool. We all forgot about it. We don't have to talk about it. It was like this magic potion. And that, half the time I don't even remember exactly what happened. So we just don't talk about it. I don't have to deal with feelings. Great. We move on. And, the next 30 times in a row, it's partying. And then there's that incident again would happen once in a while. So that was going on. first time I got high was also with some sexual trauma with a boss of mine. I was working at a what's it called, non-for-profit, and it was a very well-respected lady who was the director, and she liked her marijuana, and I really wanted to impress my new boss, and we got high, and she's probably 30 years older than me, and she tried kissing me and stuff, and it was just this really weird situation. I was always kind of, the more sensitive kid. I was more into the arts than I was sports, stuff like that. So there's kind of my base. Then in my 20s, I started playing in bands and traveling and doing stuff. And I don't know if people realize this is something that's not talked about a lot, but in the music scene, there's drinking. And there's drugs. And when you're in a bar, literally 7 days a week, playing and touring and traveling around and stuff, it's like you don't have to get up. You don't start working till like 11 o'clock at night. So you can get as drunk as you want afterwards between 2 and 6 in the morning and still function. It's not like I was doing actual work. I just had to drink some more and play my drums. It was pretty good. Yeah. And so anyway, that kind of ended. I moved back to Regina, and I found a nice lady. We eventually moved out of Regina. The band broke up and stuff, and I moved back to my hometown of Indian Head, Saskatchewan, and we bought a house for $34,000.
Wasn't that long ago, I'll bet, actually, right? Not,
it was about
relative
20 years ago, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And it was around this time that, I was having a lot of anxiety growing up. In fact, I was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer when I was like grade 5. That's how bad my anxiety was.
It's not my 14 years old myself as well. I had an ulcer, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. You're the only other person I've ever heard say that. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. And of course back then it was like you have a nervous child is what they called it, right? It wasn't anxiety. It was your boy is nervous. Here's Pepto-Bismol, right? So they treated the physical part of it, but not, what's causing this anxiety.
Who would have ever?
Well, are you open to sharing how old you are? Just because I'm trying to when I hear that the anxiety not getting diagnosed, I'm kind of wondering.
I'll let you guess, and then I'll tell you.
24. 24.
Come on.
I'm gonna guess you're about my age. I'm gonna say you're around 45.
I'm exactly 45.
Well,
okay.
There you go. Right. Okay.
So we're all similar. I'm 44, so similar age, all of us.
44, 45, 46.
Oh, you're just a baby.
As are you, Todd. I'm 46. So, yeah.
A middle child. Anyway,
I'm tall enough that by the time you see the bald spot, you're really committed. So you can't.
Yeah. That's why we're. Yeah. If I took off the cans, you'd see it. But anyway. Now, where was I, Lisa? Oh, right. I had an ulcer.
Talking about being a nervous child.
Right. So anyway, all through high school, I had anxiety and stuff. And I remember my last couple months of high school, I would not get out of bed. I was at my anxiety was kind of turning more into depression. And so anyway, during my 20s and in playing in the band and all this stuff, I would have, moments of depression, but it was mostly anxiety. Anyway, when I moved back to my hometown with my lady, the anxiety and depression really turned more into anger, which is huge in my family. A lot of the males have anger issues, which I saw a meme a while ago that said anger is anxiety's bodyguard or depression's bodyguard, right? So it's that's just how men in my family dealt with it. So. I was just waking up mad, going to work mad, coming home mad. Any little thing I'd fly off the handle. I'd burn my supper, and it was like being thrown across the room and stuff.
So can I just to interrupt? Sorry, Todd.
Sure. Yeah.
You seem to be you're a pretty big guy, right? And it's probably similar built to myself. It's not small anyway.
I'm the smallest of my family, but I come from a family of giants. So.
And so. Myself, I was never much I got past the hitting when I was like 18 kind of thing, right? But I still had a wicked temper for a long time, and it was like an emotional temper as opposed to like a physical thing. So yourself, was it kind of the same thing, or was it?
Yeah, I've never been in a fist fight in my life. Like I've never been violent.
Yeah.
I just like fly off the handle and like it's more like I'm using a screwdriver and it's like it keeps slipping. It's like then the screwdriver goes into the wall.
Okay, I got you. I got you now. Yeah, yeah.
But if people piss me off, it's like
okay.
Then I just shut down and I just leave. So anyway, I'm starting into anger, and I hated it. I'd rather, depression, anxiety is crippling and brutal, but that I could deal with better than anger. Because anger, it's such a gross feeling. It's so embarrassing. You just feel like, I don't know. And yeah. I mean, I feel inadequate in all those feelings, but for whatever reason, I'm not hurting anyone when I'm depressed or anxious. It's like when I'm scaring people around me and being intimidating and stuff, it's just, it's gross. But so anyway, I all my life I've been bouncing around from job to job to job to job. It's like I've never had a job for more than like 2 or 3 years at a time. They were the same job. So anyway,
was that because of anger? Like, was it kind of infiltrating your work and getting you fired, or?
No, not getting me fired, but it was more like I'd get angry and quit. It'd be like, I can't handle this place.
Blaze of glory. We just talked about this when I was on Dad's show. Yeah. Never leave a job without a blaze of glory, right? Everybody.
Yeah. Or it was that kind of stuff. Or I'd just get bored. I'd be like, no one's listening to me. I could run this place better. Fucking idiots. Bye. And then so I just move on. And so every few years I have a different job. And then I started with the government, federal government here in Indian Head. There's we used to have the PFRA, which is a tree nursery and a research farm and stuff. And once you get into the government, you could quit a job every 6 months, but stay in the government. You just move around, right? Different positions and stuff. So I was kind of bouncing around from position to position, applying for everything that I could because my coworkers would always piss me off. So it's like, well, I'm going to apply for that job instead. So I'll go over there and it's like, these people piss me off. But I'm just bouncing around. Yeah. And around this time we started, my lady and I actually married and started having kids. And I was drinking probably, I'd say every night, binge drinking on the weekends, smoking pot more and more often, to the point that it became a nightly thing, and binge smoking on weekends. And I just was feeling completely and utterly unsatisfied in life, which, from the outside, it looked like I had the ideal life. I bought the house I grew up in. It was this beautiful 2.5-story, 100-year-old Victorian house. We completely gutted it, renovated it. I had 2 beautiful kids, a beautiful wife. It's a good government job, and I was fucking miserable. And I don't know why or how. I was just miserable. Eventually, I started opening up to a friend of mine, and she could relate. So I was like, oh, finally, like. I tried to talk about it with my wife, ish. Mostly I would just isolate internally and not say much. But when I did open up with her, I could tell that she just couldn't relate, or like she couldn't quite understand, right? So it was really refreshing to find someone that could relate, and we'd been friends for a few years. And so
how was that for you, Todd? Sorry, Lisa, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I also think it's scary as a spouse to sort of acknowledge that your spouse might be depressed or whatever, right? Like, especially, I don't know the dynamics, but you were working. So whether you were the breadwinner or just, an equal financial contributor to the household, still probably somewhat dependent on you. And I think for a spouse, it's like there's this one part of you that wants to be the friend and the support and acknowledge. And because I see this with patients, right? And I think then there's the other part that is afraid to acknowledge it. It's like, if I acknowledge it, is it going to become more real? And then how's it going to impact our family and our home and our life? And, so I almost wonder, for example, with your wife, she might have been better able to be a support to you if you were a friend. I think it's harder when it's a spouse because there's a lot of fear.
What a stupid observation.
Wow.
Terrible observation. Oh my God. I'm logging off. You could very well be right. Plus, as I found out later, she was also dealing with her own shit. and she's a new mother and stuff, and plus she had past trauma that I didn't know about that she was dealing with internally and stuff, and so
there's this angry motherfucker running around the house, and right,
exactly.
yeah.
But again, it just is that idea, though, that when someone's so in a case like that, like if she's got her own shit, right, then she needs you to be an anchor, right? So the minute that she admits that you're not steady, that's terrifying. So it's like, nope, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it because you need to be my anchor because I got my own stuff, right?
Yeah. And she was never rude about it. I could just see that it was like someone talking about the 1945 Stanley Cup. I just, my eyes glaze over. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't watch hockey, but they keep talking. It's like, okay, right. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of more the feeling.
I think what Lisa's referring to, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, generally that would manifest itself not in a rude way, right? It would be, even if the person is even aware if that's what they're doing.
Totally. I think it's often subconscious, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's almost like a form of denial, and it's denial because it's scary, and denial because, they need you to be a strong support, a financial breadwinner, whatever it might be. I think it's just this subconscious defense and fear that if they acknowledge it, it's going to sort of take on a life, and they're like, I can't handle that, or our family can't handle that. And so I think it's most often subconscious and definitely not mean. I've never, I don't know if I've ever seen it manifest in a mean way, but just more as this like fear and this defense that they have a hard time sort of being open to it when it's a spouse.
The whole thing then all of a sudden as well, right? Like another layer.
Yeah.
Sorry, so we just kind of jumped on you. What I was going to say before Lisa cut me off.
I'm rude
Lisa.
like that.
I love it when you say
like
stuff. So you can talk about any damn you want. For myself, and you said something that you found something that you can relate to. So again, not my story. We won't get into it. The first time somebody said to me about my trauma, I understand that I'll never understand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right? Like I start to well up because it was like this. Finally somebody gets it. So how is that for you in that moment where somebody you can relate to, right? That must have been an awesome feeling, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was incredibly validating, and it was amazing. And unfortunately, so I've been recently, I was gonna wait till the end, but I've been recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I look back, and like you always hear about, what's it called? The emotional
lexicon. Oh, sorry.
Dysregulation of emotion. And you always think of anger and stuff like that. But more people I talk to with ADHD, the more they talk about falling in love easily, getting crushes easily, bouncing around from partners easily. And I don't know, I'm no psychologist, but I think that's a part of the emotional dysregulation. It's like, I'm having a feeling and I'm going to go blow it up even bigger. So anyway, that friend of mine, her and I kind of, we started having feelings.
You might remember Rich Johnson. He was in episode 144. It was a weekend ramble where we got to talk to him about being an interventionist and some of the things that entailed. Anyway, they don't just do interventions. They do family case management and treatment placement as well, which is a free service. So check them out, guys. Calls and emails are, of course, totally confidential. You can call them at 615-484-8792, or you can also give them an email at info@rosecrestrecoveryservices.com. Thanks, guys. No.
Let's say, and it lasted for probably a year and a half or whatever. And so that complicated things even more. So now I'm drunk and high all the time. I'm angry. I'm hating my job. I feel like my wife maybe isn't relating with me, and I'm having this other relationship, and I'm full of shame and guilt because, I'm basically going beyond my moral boundaries, right? So it's like, who the fuck am I right now? Like, what the hell is going on? And I'm still miserable. It's like I have everything in the world, including 2 relationships, and I'm miserable.
Shame sticks to everything, like Ryan says, right? That's one of his kind of terms. It just sticks to everything. Shame does, right? And it's
God, does it ever? So eventually it turned into one day at lunch. I just kind of, I pieced out. I was having lunch, came home from work, and I I'm sure my wife knows, like, I'm clearly not myself, and I just got up and I drove away, and I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going. I'm just like on gravel roads, just driving, and she phones and my dad phones. They're like, "Where the hell are you? What the hell's going on?" And they convinced me to drive to Regina to go to the hospital. So I do that. Took a bit of convincing and figuring out where the hell I was, but I eventually ended up in Regina, which is crazy because, I mean, I was so dissociated. I was like, I wasn't even in my body. I don't even know how I got there, but. So anyway, I ended up in an ER room, waiting, and people coming in, asking the same 20 questions over and over and over, and my anger's building. I'm like, to the point, I'm like, you ask me that fucking question again, I'm gonna snap. Like, how many people have to ask me these questions? And so anyway, I end up seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist in the ER, which is kind of rare. Usually you see a psych nurse or something, but so he talked to me, and I told him I was completely open. I told him everything that was happening in my life, and I said I'm suicidal, like I'm done. I'm at my breaking point. And he basically said, "Well, keep taking your medication." Oh yeah, I'm on a medication. I've been seeing a therapist once in a while. Basically said, keep taking your medication and seeing your therapist, but we just don't have room for you unless you've attempted suicide. We probably won't let you in here.
When about was that? What year-ish would that have been?
That was, I want to say, about 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. I've put my family through hell. Everyone's calling and texting each other and trying to figure out, well, holy shit, Todd's gone nuts. Well, let's figure it out. So I've just I'm just devastating my family because it felt like I had a hangnail, and the doctor's like, yeah, just go run it on her some water and go home. So that was extremely invalidating. It was embarrassing. It took like even 10 years ago, mental health wasn't talked about as much as it is now, and especially as a man. I was, not that I want to make this a gender thing, but it took a lot for me to go out of my comfort zone and even ask for help. So to have that doctor go, you're fine. Promise me you won't hurt yourself. I was like, okay, go home. Bye-bye. It was devastating. And it wasn't even like, okay, I don't need a hospital room per se, but is there something else you can offer? Like, it's either black or white. There's no gray here. Like, you don't want to, outpatient thing, nothing. Nope. So I went home and I leveled up my actions. I was a horrible husband, horrible father, horrible employee. I'm breaking more and more my own moral codes. I'm drinking and using more. And within a year, I almost stabbed my brother trying to kill myself. Grabbed a cop's gun when they were trying to do a mental health check. I didn't get out of the holster, but and next thing you know, it was almost exactly to the day, a year later, I'm arriving at the hospital handcuffed after almost killing myself and trying to stab my brother. And I'm like, okay, so now will you take me?
Tell me it was the same doctor.
No. It was
that'd been a little too picture perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I never did see that guy ever again, actually. And strapped to a gurney, and so anyway, they finally said, okay, maybe this guy should be here. So I spent a couple weeks in the psych ward.
How was that?
Oh, woo. I could write a movie about every day that I was there. So, yeah, it's bizarro, man. It's bizarro. And honestly, I don't think I think the only thing that I got there was a safe place. Like, I don't know that.
Really?
Well, and that, okay, a safe place, and they finally gave me a psychiatrist that I could start talking to right away. Because my therapist gave me a phone number to call a psychiatrist, and they said it was going to be about a 14-month wait before I saw a psychiatrist, so I never called again. But now I'm in the hospital. It's like, boom, here's a psychiatrist. So I was like, okay, so I sped up that process. So now I have a psychiatrist that I see regularly, and I was somewhere safe. While I was there, also, this is the other positive thing. Twice AA came to my room and tried to talk to me and drop off a pamphlet or whatever it was. Of course, both times I'm like, why are you talking to me? I'm like, I'm crazy and suicidal. I'm not an alcoholic.
Hi everybody, this is Carl with today's public service announcement about naloxone, or, as it's more commonly known, Narcan, a medication that can help save the life of somebody experiencing an opioid overdose. Did you know that in 2021 opioids were responsible for over 7,000 deaths in Canada and 106,000 deaths in the United States? These numbers are staggering, but there is hope. Narcan is a medication that can reverse the effects of an opioid overdose and help save a life. Narcan is available for free at participating pharmacies and harm reduction centers across Canada, and is also available without a prescription at most pharmacies in the United States. Now, I know most of you won't be around people using opioids, but you never know when it will be around you, and you could save the life of someone who is loved and who loves.
Alcoholic.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
but it planted the seed, right? It was like, blink. Oh, maybe this, whatever. So, so anyway, I eventually leave the hospital. In the hospital, everything comes out. Everything that I've ever done, what a horrible person I am, comes out. And so I start seeing, a psychologist instead of like once a month. It's like a couple times a week. My wife starts seeing someone, and we start seeing someone together, and we start working on stuff. She is obviously a way more apt to learn about mental health and mental illness. She had no desire to just kick me out or anything. So yeah, we go home. I thought that this was going to be a quick story, but I'm like,
The show goes as long as the content goes, and if it goes that long, I'll make 2 episodes out of it. That's what I have to say. Right?
so anyway, we go home, and life's obviously pretty bananas and awkward, and I'm off work for about a month. And I decide to stop drinking on my own. I just said, okay, alcohol's not great for these meds and all, everything everyone's been telling me. But I literally made a conscious effort to smoke marijuana more often because it's good for anxiety, they say, right? So turns out I was anxious all the time. Sorry, you said something, Chuck. I missed it.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there. I say, Lisa, I'll tell you some thoughts about on marijuana that will kind of blow your mind. Actually, some real medical, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's not that great for anxiety, as it turns out. Not for a lot of people, anyway.
I sure
Or
liked
mood,
it.
or psychosis. Yeah.
Well, I really liked crack too, Todd. So right? I really it was great, actually. I'm not going to lie. So
yeah, it's good for anxiety. I heard too.
Yeah, it's great for anxiety.
So anyway, so now I'm smoking pot like a fiend, and after a couple years, I'm like, it's been almost 2 years. I'm clearly not an alcoholic because I quit on my own. I'm not really doing much of anything. Like, I'm still seeing therapists once in a while and stuff, doing none of the work that they're telling me to do.
But is your life improving, at least at a surface level?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, internally, definitely not. Yeah, I'm not sure what other people's perspectives were, to be honest with you. But anyway, one Christmas, I was like, wow, I may as well have some schnapps. And I have a drink, and within 6 weeks, I'm drinking every day again. Yeah. God damn.
You made up for lost time, did you? That's what I say, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if I made up for lost time, but I definitely picked up where I left off. Very quickly, I was drinking again every day and binge drinking 2 to 3 times a week. But now I'm also full of self-pity and still guilt and shame and not doing any of the work that any professionals are telling me to do.
Yeah.
And so it kind of was coming to a head again. And then one day I was reading a news article about the Saskatchewan government, or not the government, but the health region was cutting, I think it was 20 jobs, mental health jobs, from the psych ward.
Yep.
It was something like 12 of those jobs were psych nurses. And sometimes anger can be a good thing. It's motivated me more than once in my life. And I was so pissed. I was like, what the fuck? Like, there was one night security came, dragged my ass out of my bed, put me in a locked room, threw a mattress on the floor, and locked me in there for like something like 20 hours or something because one of the staff actually provoked me. So I was like, okay, we need more psych nurses, not less psych nurses. And so I wrote a letter. Like I kind of made this blog thing, and I don't know, for whatever reason, and I explained my whole situation about being suicidal and all this stuff, and I sent it out to like newspapers and stuff, thinking nothing of it. And within a day, there was like media like I was on the radio, I was on newspapers. 3 different media outlets came out with TV crews to interview me. Because I was just so open and honest and about these cuts and about my story, and so it blew up.
Pardon me? Funny. It's not funny, haha. It's funny, peculiar. There's a lot of parallels in our stories, and we can talk about that. Continue, but I'm sitting here going, "That's crazy, man." Right?
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, like
please. Yeah.
So all the news media places found my letter and posted it in their stories and stuff, and it was, I don't know, like tens of thousands of times my letter was shared. And so I was like I was kind of thrown into the position of an advocate, having no healthy base. I was not stable enough to be thrown into this position, but right. I felt obligated almost. It was like, okay, I've got all this attention. I want to, I should do something with this because I want change, right? So I organized a rally. I did a couple things in my early advocacy role, including drinking and smoking more, because I was like, this pressure was huge. No one was really putting the pressure on me. I was doing it myself, because I'm still drinking and I'm still smoking all the time. I'm still having anxiety and depression. And that finally came to a head one day when I was no longer partying. I was drinking and using in my garage alone every night at this point. And I thought, this is it. I'm done. And I've tried to quit smoking pot. I've tried to quit drinking so many times. I think I'm going to try to just drink all the booze in the house. And then in the morning when my wife wakes up, I'll tell her, okay, honey, there's no booze in the house. Let's try to let's not bring booze in the house anymore. And of course, I ended up getting so drunk, so insanely drunk, like barfing, suicidal. I figure I'm going to kill myself. I went into my house. I sat at my computer, this computer actually, and I wrote the first draft of my kids' book. Actually, it was very it was a very different draft at that time. And I thought, maybe this will, I don't know what the hell it was. It was almost like a suicide note in a way or something. And I had a brief moment of clarity, and I woke up my wife and I said, I'm going to hurt myself. Like, I need help right now. And she got on the phone. It's like 3 a.m. I'm dried puke on my face, and so anyway, she went nuts, phoning places and stuff, and they finally said, okay, take him to your local hospital. So she took me to my local hospital here in Indian Head. I spent the night there. They decided to what's it called, where they bring you in officially. Admit me. They admitted me, and I hung out there for a couple weeks. But during my time there, I was still going out to the parking lot to smoke pot. And so my doctor, who saved my life, I'm sure, said, okay, you're going to go to detox in Regina, and we're gonna nip this in the bud. I want you to start seeing an addictions counselor, and I want you to go to treatment. So I go to detox in Regina. I have
How's that for you?
Oh, brutal. So I smoked pot on my way there, of course. I get there and they're like, They had a room ready for me. They're like, well, we can't put you in your room. You just smoked pot, so you have to go down in the basement, which is like
I've
the
heard
dry
about
out
that.
room.
I've never done the Regina detox, but yeah, I haven't heard great things about it. Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, massive panic attack down there. Eventually, they bring me up to my room. Massive panic attack. 4 a.m. I just grab my bags and I walk out, and I walk probably an hour to my brother-in-law's house. My dad comes, picks me up, takes me back home. I walk into the house and my wife is looking at me like, just like, what the fuck? Like, I can't, Todd, anymore. I can't. I'm so tired of watching you disintegrate, and I can't. I'm like, well, I'll quit drinking on my own. I've done it before. I'll quit drinking on my own, but I got to smoke pot. It's so good for my anxiety. She said, okay, perfect, deal. But get out. Do it somewhere else. I was like, okay. So I go to my mom and dad's house. I'm there for about an hour. My dad's like, well, get your stuff. We have an extra room downstairs. And I thought, I would rather quit drinking and smoking pot than live with my parents.
Fair enough. And you're how old at this point? At this point, you're...
This is 7 years ago.
Okay.
So
okay.
38.
Late 30s. Yep.
And I'm like, fuck. It's hard enough just to... No, there's no fucking way am I living with my mom and dad.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not morally. It's just they drive. Parents. It's
I get it. Yeah.
I can't live here. Are you
Absolutely.
nuts?
Yeah.
We'll all be dead in a week. So he's like, so what do you want me to do? So he takes me back to the hospital in Indian Head, and my doctor's like, cool, okay, great. You can detox here, but you are not leaving this building. Like, all the nurses know, all the staff know, you are not leaving this building. You're not going out to smoke pot. So I said, fair enough, whatever. And I'm getting emotional now. Damn you, Chuck and Lisa.
Not an episode if I don't cry, so whatever, man. Give her balls. Yeah, right.
I was full of all the guilt and shame and all the shit I was feeling. My small town got together and they fundraised for my family. People I don't even really know. They had like paint nights and just donations and shit, and like
for your like the wife and kids to like
for my wife and kids. I mean, there was like video game consoles bought for my children. My wife didn't have to cook for like 3 weeks. It was just bananas. It was so And it was so overwhelming. I kept giving my wife shit like, no, you can't take this stuff. What are you talking about? I'm like, no, what are these people
this is
doing?
a whole week of Morning Cup of Kindness happening, eh, Lisa? Right now.
Yeah.
You see this? We'll talk
Totally.
about that, Todd.
Yeah,
okay.
and my wife is like, shut up. These people love you and want to help us. Like, there's, be humble enough to take this, these gifts. So I was like, okay, whatever. And so that was the beginning of my sober journey. The last night I drank was the night that I wrote the first draft of the kids' book. Last time I smoked pot was on my way back to the hospital to detox, and that was November of 2015.
Okay.
No, 2016. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
A while ago.
Long time ago.
And that was my wife's birthday. That was my wife's birthday when she dropped me off back to the hospital again. Yes, we have the same birthday.
In the end, it turns out to be a good birthday, right? For a present for her because it's your sober date. But I mean, at the time, maybe not as much.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Birthday number one was great, but
Sounds like
everyone
small
after
town Sask
that.
made up for that, though. Holy cow, that's amazing. That is just
Yeah, I mean, I
absolutely
still
amazing.
and I said this on another podcast about how I really wanted to.
You've been on other podcasts. I thought it was your first. I literally heard about you from another podcaster.
No, baby. But you're my favorite, baby. I said, I wanted to detox in my local hospital. It's like, it's my community members. It's people I know. It's like people already know me and stuff. And that blew their mind. They're like, I would want to detox so far away from everyone I knew.
Right.
But I was like, no. I was comfortable there. Like when I remember going there sick as a little kid, right? Like it's like my mommy, it's my hospital. Right. And the staff was amazing. It was just so incredible. Everyone was so amazing. It was over Thanksgiving. I had a friend that I hadn't seen in like 10 years drop off a Thanksgiving meal for me, like just crazy, crazy shit. And part of it was because I was advocating a little bit before this. So my story had come out, and a lot of people didn't even know what I went through. So I think there was, it was gratitude for them. Like, thank you so much for talking and doing this stuff and being open. And so anyway, it was just, it still gets me in the feels. So anyway, that was, so I was there for about 2 weeks, and I left, and I went to my first AA meeting right away. In my small town, so of course I know everybody in there, and I was like, okay, whatever, here we go. I know people that have already gone through treatment and gone through AA, and they're always on Facebook, and I'm like, here we go, I'm gonna join a cult, I guess. And they started reading the 12 steps, and the first step one is, we became something or something. I can't remember. It's been a few years, but we became powerless to alcohol. And I was like my mouth must have, like, I would love to have seen my face, because like, holy shit, like that guy just read exactly what I'm feeling and didn't know how to put it into words. Yeah. So I drank the Kool-Aid real quick, we'll say. I was like,
well, it's validation, right?
So
like it's validating.
I gotta turn this, yes. I got to turn this on you.
Okay.
Because Dan just last week, last Sunday night, did this to me. So I'm going to do it to you. Dan at Hard Knocks Talks, for the people that are supporting us there. How was it when you first read that? When you first say, I'm Todd, I'm an alcoholic. How does that feel to you? How's that, like, do you remember that? Do you remember that owning it? Was it freeing? Was it shaming? Was it?
No, it was like, I didn't feel like I was an alcoholic necessarily yet.
Okay. So
I just felt like I was.
Moment.
No, it wasn't an aha moment. It was more like, I'm just, what's it called when you just go with the crowd? It was like
social drinker. Yes.
Or like,
very
a
social.
sheep. I'm just following the sheep, and they said that, so I guess I have to say it. Kind of thing. I was like, man. But yeah, but it was the 12 steps. The first few steps there, that was like more like the aha moment.
Okay. Yep.
So I had my own business at this point, and I just basically abandoned it. I just shut the doors and white knuckled it for 3 months, waiting to get into treatment, which was also in my small town. It was like 6 blocks away from my house, which is, a lot of people don't. It's rare to go through addiction treatment 6 blocks from your house in a small town.
Very, very rare. Yeah.
Was it a residential program, Todd? Like, did you stay there?
Yeah, I was there for 28 days. I had a roommate and a bed and all that stuff. Yeah, I was locked in there for 28. Well, I wasn't locked, but yeah, I had to follow all the rules, and there's no contact for family for the first week and all this stuff. Like, I went through it all. We were supposed to go for 3 walks a day, which we did. A couple times I saw my mom driving by, and she would honk and wave. It was like awkward. Or we'd have to go into the grocery store because some of the people needed to buy cigarettes, and there's, everyone in my small town walking by. Hey, Todd, how's it going? Oh, good. Oh, what are you up to? Oh, I'm just in Pine Lodge right now. Like, oh, good for you. It's like, and the counselors on the staff obviously knew that. So then I kind of had my own rules, because it was like, okay, you're going to run into people, but you're not allowed to like have intimate conversations. You can say hello and all that stuff for the for the time.
So are
while
most
you're here.
people at that program, are they people who come from away, or yeah?
Yeah. I was the only local person in there, and there was probably 25 people in there at the time.
And is it a men?
No,
is it a men's only or co-ed or?
It's co-ed, and don't get me wrong, there have been local people in there. I'm not the only local person that's ever been in there, but at any given time, it's almost always people from away. Yeah. From Regina, Saskatchewan, other small towns around. So yeah, and well, I didn't know all the staff. I didn't know the counselors. A lot of them, or some of them, commuted and stuff, so I didn't really know them, which I'm glad. but I knew like the day staff and stuff. And it was the most terrifying, liberating, validating, educational, amazing 28 days of my life. Like, it was just, when I went in there, they say you have to get sober for yourself. And I was like, yeah, I'm tired. Like, I'm so tired of living this way, clearly. But also, you know, I did for other people too. I'm not going to lie. But I went into the process completely open-minded. I'd gone to a few AA meetings already, and I was like, okay, I pretty much, you know, like what's happening in the meetings, so treatment must be pretty good too. And so, yeah, I just went with an open mind and thought I would do the work, and I did. And going in with that open mind and being willing also saved me, I think. But yeah, it was terrifying.
So can I ask though, so you went to it was detox for 2 weeks, right? And then you said you came out and you had 3 months of sort of white knuckling it, waiting to get into Pine Lodge, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And during those 3 months, were you going to meetings then?
Yes, I was, yeah.
And so even through this whole story, like you said, you started the AA meetings, and initially when it was, hi, my name is Todd and I'm an alcoholic, you kind of weren't really believing it yet.
Yeah.
So was it during the 3 months white knuckling it, going to AA meetings, that you started to believe that you were suffering with addiction?
Yes. Yeah. And like,
okay.
Because a lot of the people in the meeting are local, you know, you sit around and have coffee afterwards and stuff, and, you know, you start chatting with people, and it was like, oh, okay, my story isn't exactly unique. I was like, oh, okay. You start to hear familiar patterns and themes and stuff. It's like, okay, shit, okay. So then I started to believe it more. Saying that, I went into Pine Lodge open-minded and willing, also thinking, I'll just, you know, I'm not going to quit everything. You know, I'm just going to learn how to smoke weed reasonably and maybe have a drink once in a while. But,
of course, yeah.
And of course, pretty much everyone else in there is thinking the same thing. So it's not, it's a very common theme. So of course, counselors, you know, at some point that's brought up and squashed real quick. It is a very slippery slope, right? So, so I learned that. I learned, you know, just I learned so much. I learned so much about myself. I grew, just not even. Sometimes it wasn't even about addiction. It was just how I deal with people, how I deal with stressful situations. Yeah, I honestly think
Coping skills. Right?
Yeah, just good life skills. Yeah. And I honestly think everybody on earth should go through a 28-day treatment, whether they're addicted to anything or not, just to grow and
just
learn and
unpack some stuff and right.
Yeah,
you know?
Take a long, hard look at yourself. And I mean, it's intensive, right? Like, you're up at 7:00 in the morning and you go to bed about 10, and like you're basically doing work the entire time. Yeah,
I never went to a treatment. I only did the detox, you know, the 2 weeks of detox. But so I've been a kind of a condensed version of what you dealt with there. But I imagine very similar in a lot of different ways too, right? So
yeah.
That feeling wheel we were talking about before the episode. I'm sure that must have been a part of that experience at some point. Had
that feeling?
Yeah, the feeling wheel.
Oh yeah. The feeling wheel,
right?
Yes, that was definitely
for me. I said to Dan the other day, had I realized how important that was, because I understood it. I mean, it's a pretty basic concept, right? Had I understood how important it was early in my recovery, things would have been a very different journey, I think. Right? Like to understand why I'm pissed off, right? Like why you're really pissed off. It's not because, you know, the screwdriver slipped out of the screw, or you know, because you burnt your toast. Right, that's not why you're really pissed off. There's something else going on, and you can dissect that. And the importance of that to me is it's freedom, right? It's freeing to be able to say, "Now I get it, man." Right? You know, so
absolutely.
Todd, how old were you when you started your story, and you were saying that, you know, you were drinking, and you talked about sort of the sexual trauma that was happening with another kid? Like, how old were you when you were drinking to that extent?
I was 12 or 13. I was grade 7.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Because I guess something that stands out in your story that I find interesting is that, you know, so from say 12 years old, you're abusing alcohol, right? And then you get up to your mid 30s, you're having interpersonal difficulties. There was the situation with the other woman. You weren't happy. You're having anxiety, like all this stuff. And yet for say 20 years, you're like convincing yourself that you don't have addiction. And maybe it's just like you said, you got sick and tired of being sick and tired. But it seems to me like, you did a pretty good job for 20 years of minimizing it, lying to yourself and justifying everything. But then over the course of this 3 months going to AA and then this 28 days in this program, like things just really kind of, turned 180. Do you just kind of cop that up to the fact that you were sick and tired of being sick and tired? Or I'm wondering, like, what caused such a significant shift over such a short time when for 20 years you were able to kind of deny it to yourself?
It's none of your business, Lisa.
Can I take a crack at it? Exhaustion?
Yeah.
I think what it was partly, and I don't know if I figured this out or if someone said it to me or what, but it was...
Then take credit for it. You seem like a type.
Yeah. I think it was the definition of insanity. It was doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I had tried therapy, I tried medication, I tried all these things, but I quit drinking for 2 years, but I was fucking high the whole time. It was like, I was doing everything but just getting sober and grounding myself back to zero, and then dealing with crap, seeing how I felt off of everything, right? So I think that's what it was. It was like, okay, I've tried everything. I'll try the thing I don't want to try last. So
being like abstinence.
Yeah, abstinence.
Okay.
And then, of course, when I was in treatment, then you also learn, like, there's more to it than just abstinence. There's, the whole dry drunk thing. It's like, just because you're not drinking doesn't mean you're not sober. So then it was like, okay, now I have to deal with all this other trauma and baggage and stuff that I have to learn
in the first place, right?
And speaking of the feeling wheel, it was like, I don't know how many times I kept hearing, you have to learn to feel your feelings in treatment. I was like, I know what fucking miserable feels like. Like, eat shit. Like, I know how to feel things.
Yeah.
I didn't.
You know how to numb them, right?
Yeah.
At that point. And
I didn't know how to
really
feel
good at that,
content.
right?
It was actually content that was the hard one. It was like, I'm feeling okay for a second. And there's this too shall pass is like, it's meant for the negative, but it's also
so
like,
true, and it's so right. And I hate it whenever somebody says it. Like, can you just let me be pissed off? Right? Or sad or miserable with myself, right?
But I was applying it to contentness. It was like, I'm feeling content. Oh, this too shall pass. Oh, shit. Well, so then I just, my default was misery. That's what I knew. That's how I coped for the last 20 years. So I would just go, oh, shit, I don't know how to feel happy because it's so different and scary. And, it's going to be such a big crash when I do feel misery again from here to here. So I may as well just stay at this nice baseline of misery. And that's when I realized, that's what they mean about feeling your feelings, like not just shit, but good stuff too.
Yeah.
And I think when there's a lot of shame, and if you don't believe you deserve to be happy, then there's that I'm going to just torture myself and stick to misery because I don't think I'm entitled to feel content or
recipe
happy.
for relapse, right? We've talked about that, in some of our, landmark moments on the show. Is for me has been like, oh fuck, we had great news today. I feel like I want to celebrate, right? And, those are a couple months ago, but now it's other things that drive me crazy. And I'm sure we can get into that, but yeah, there's like, it's like the demons of addiction are just waiting to just like, and being sad didn't get us in there. Let's see what we can do with happy, right? Let's get in there.
It's like dangle a carrot in front of you, and then
Yeah.
Using dreams didn't break them. The being pissed off and sad and miserable and broke didn't break them. Well, here, let's see what happens with happy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
And it took a long time to forgive myself for all, for the misbehaving I did when I was in my lowest moments.
Well, and with your wife still, obviously, and I got to say, Todd, the first time you mentioned her before we were recording, there was that twinkle in your eye. There's a change in the pitch of your voice, and I think it's absolutely endearing. So it's, you know, and it's amazing that you guys are still together through all of that, and you know, she sounds like quite a lady, and you know, I just love it when I hear that in somebody's voice, you know, and you could certainly tell as soon as you had mentioned her, right? Some reverence there for sure. So
thanks, great. We haven't lived together for 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. She's upstairs.
Yeah, great.
She's upstairs.
That was gonna, for me, that was going to get awkward, and I thrive on awkward. So okay, I'm really glad you were fucking around. Okay.
Nah, she's upstairs taking a shit or something. I don't know what she's doing.
Women don't poop, Todd. Women don't.
I said
poop.
or something.
Jesus.
No, no. It's funny. It's like we are by far more intimate now than we were before, and I don't mean physically intimate. It's just we literally grew up together. We were these weird damaged people that got together, and from then to now, it's like that's really we've grown as individuals and as a couple, and we have
that's amazing.
2 incredible kids that we, you know, that we our fundamentals.
How old are your kids now, Todd?
18 and 16.
Okay.
And our 18-year-old just moved out on Monday, and it was like the most. It was just a crazy emotional day for both of us, all 3 of us really, and but we couldn't be more proud. But yeah, it's
boys, girls, if you don't mind me.
2 boys.
Two boys. Lucky. Okay. Yeah.
Lucky.
You just got to worry about one instead of all of them, right? So
that's right. But yeah, our fundamentals never change, right? Like we have the same morals, we have the same idea of how we want to raise children and stuff, right? So that we had such a good base, and we had, you know, we just loved each other so much, and you know, she's had hard times too, and it didn't. I mean, not like my hard times affected everyone around me. Her hard time, maybe less so, but still. You know, so she grew as a person, as an individual as well through stuff. So it wasn't just me. So yeah, we've just grown. Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So I got it now. I'm going to move this along a little bit now because you know it's my job. How do you get to be a podcast host at that? So how long have you been doing it now? Sorry, I want to ask that first so I can get a sense of.
It's about 2.5 years.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
So after
that story. Yeah.
So after treatment, it was like literally life just started to like boop, 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 like things just started to fall in place, and I was told that would happen, and I was like, yeah, bullshit. And it was like I left treatment. 3 days later, I started a new job it's called Globe Theater in Regina. And like I'm an artsy guy, so I'm like, holy shit, I have a job in the arts. Like I was a set carpenter, and I did that for like 2 years, building sets and theater. I'm like, this
neat.
Is like bananas.
Those
like,
do you meet in your life, right? You know?
Yeah, I know. And my sister was working there, and so she got my foot in the door and stuff. And so anyway, then I for my second year working at Globe Theater. Well, actually, through this whole time, I was still doing advocating and rallies and articles and things like this. So I was
articles and things like this. You want to explain that one a little bit?
Well, anytime something bothered me again or pissed me off, I'd write another blog or article or whatever.
It grinds my gears.
Yeah, and sometimes it was published, sometimes it wasn't. It didn't blow up like my first letter, but you know, it was just. Yeah, it was just,
so you were submitting these to the local paper, or you were doing them on Facebook, or what was your?
Both, yeah, different papers and stuff, and some papers would pick them up, some wouldn't. I don't even remember what I wrote about at this point, but and I was also coming back to Pine Lodge once a month and talk. So the director at the time was like, had me come and talking, and one day she texted me and said, hey, I want you on staff. And
were you 12-stepping it this whole time?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And theater is a young man's game, I'll say. If you're in your 40s and you're trying to work in theater, you will burn out real quick. So I was like, okay, I love it here. This is amazing, but holy crap. Like I'm 40 years old. I can't. There's only so much plywood I can carry upstairs.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I left, and I started working at Pine Lodge, the place that I got sober, and it was amazing. I was there for about 2 years, and then COVID hit.
In what role? What was your role there?
I can't remember what the title was, but they wanted someone on staff on weekends and evenings that has sobriety. So when a counselor isn't there, there's still someone, knowledgeable in the 12 steps, and someone that can relate and all this stuff.
Some lived experience, and of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Other staff hated that because I think they were jealous because they were there for like 10, 15 years, and all the clients gravitated towards me, but too bad. But anyway, and then COVID hit, and then we started open again, and then we had a fire, so Pine Lodge shut down.
I heard about that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I was off work, and it was COVID, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to do, I'm still like advocating and stuff, so I was doing the best I could, and I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? So I wrote. So sorry, I didn't finish my book. So once COVID hit, it was like 4 years. This kid's book was in the making, so I finally had time to like finish it. I was like, I got to finish this goddamn project.
So now let's talk about the book then, Todd. Let's talk about the book.
Sure.
What the hell, man? Like, nobody's ever heard of a book about mental health for children before. I mean, that was certainly a first for me, and at least I don't imagine you've come across many of them. And that's in your wheelhouse. So right?
There's some out there, but yeah.
Okay.
Mine's a little grittier than others, I'll say.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about it.
Is it appropriate for little kids? Like, what would you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Relatively speaking, or
No, it is like it's. I've never had a parent or a professional buy it and go, "Dude, I'm not letting kids read this." It gets good reviews, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't remember when I came back to it, but it was probably a year later. I was like, "Oh yeah, I wrote this thing," and so I started editing it to make it, changing stuff and adding stuff.
What drives you to do this? What specifically for kids, right? And,
because I saw, going through my own traumas, I saw that I was also, I think, putting my kids through some trauma, whether it was my fits of rage or my, daddy's in the hospital because he tried to take a cop's gun, it's like, and it was stuff that we didn't really talk to our kids about. I mean, as it was happening, we did, like, daddy's not well and stuff like this, but we didn't prepare them with anything. So I wanted something that parents could initiate the conversation of mental health with, especially if you already knew you might be suffering, and so before a crisis happens, this is what it looks like, and this is what's happening.
And having a sense of empathy towards or understanding can only be a good thing in a child's life anyway, right? Regardless of,
Exactly. So, yeah. And that's something else I learned in treatment was like humbleness and not being judged or not judging.
What is the book aimed at specifically? Like what age group?
Like toddlers, like ages 4 to 8 kind of thing.
Gotcha.
It's really well reviewed. I ordered it, right? And just looking at it on Amazon, it's like 4.8 out of 5 stars. There's quite a few reviews on there too. So
someone gave me 3 stars. God damn it!
How dare they?
I want to find you, 3-star person. It's probably an American.
65% of my audience American. So
thank you for that review, America.
Todd, I was going to ask you, and you're kind of on it, but I guess like similarly, I was thinking because your kids were like they weren't babies when you were going through this stuff,
No, yeah.
So what was that like for them at the time, and even like now? Like, I mean, what do they say? I don't know if you guys ever speak about it now, but what do they say about what that was like for them back when that was happening?
I don't. We gave them up for adoption last year, so I haven't talked to them in a while.
Yeah,
No.
that's reasonable.
Remember that time you took a question seriously? Me neither. Yeah.
Just Lisa's. Yours I take serious for some reason.
Fucking chauvinist.
Yeah, I mean, it's an everyday thing, right? Because I'm constantly like, oh, I got to go do an interview, so I'm always in and out, and I'm, I do a lot of speaking and stuff, and I've even spoken at their school and stuff. So yeah, we're pretty open about it now. We don't. I guess we've never really discussed that day, or well, there's been a couple days, but any of those days in particular, I haven't talked to them. I'm sure my wife did and stuff while it was happening, but I was too busy trying to take care of myself during those days. But yeah, we talk about mental health. We talk about this stuff constantly. My kids are so. Well, one kid is different. One kid is like his heart's on his sleeve, so it's like he just will talk if anything is bothering him at all. The other one, you could see he wants to talk. My older one, so it's like pulling teeth. It's like, come on, dude, we're almost there. We're almost there. I feel sad. It's like, yeah, we did it. And he's the one that I think was maybe traumatized the most out of my situations, because his behavior was different during some of the stuff. So it was his reactions really that kind of motivated me to do the book. So I'm sure he has his own traumas and stuff, but he's an 18-year-old kid who's seeing a counselor whenever he needs to see one.
Well, and was what, early teens through COVID, right?
Yes.
So there's a whole dynamic there that has affected what, two different generations, I guess. Wherever the line is going to be this time, between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, COVID.
We're
totally
not even we don't even know what the hell is.
Yeah, that's right.
Done to the world yet, right? Years of being isolated with your family when you're supposed to be out, socializing and carrying on. And
well, his
if
grade
your family's
10, 11,
got some mental health issues, I can only imagine, right? So that much more, right?
Yeah, exactly. His grade 10, 11, 12 was during COVID, so he missed out on all the best parts of high school.
Yep.
And yeah, he did university online last year because he was so socially not down to social. And that's my wife. She's very quiet. She's gets social anxiety too. So part of it is DNA, part of it, it's nature and nurture. So
like everything else,
that's one of the reasons why we were so proud of him to live in dorms and move out on Monday, because it was like, holy fuck, okay, I think he's actually
big deal.
Yeah.
Things you take for granted. Oh.
I can't remember what your question was. Did I answer it?
Yeah, I was just curious, how your kids coped with that, and if they talk about it now. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sitting
definitely.
here laughing, Todd, because the ADHD thing. I'm pretty good at that, right? So you said that, I was like, fuck, what was it? Was it me that asked the question? Was it Lisa? And I'm like, oh, Lisa, thank you. Okay, yeah, right. Yes, we have a neurotypical in the room where we're going to be okay, right? Yeah. She knows where our pens and our keys are, and everything's going to be okay. Right?
We have a Wrangler.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right, the book. So the book. It was very tricky to write for that age group, talking about depression and stuff. So I had to walk this very fine line of not making it too fluffy and being like, the happy little cloud is sad today. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be realistic, but I didn't want it to be, dark
terrifying.
and I didn't want like Daddy wants to slit his wrist. It's like, no, well, I don't want that, but I don't want fluffy either. So I think I walked that line
I'd love
nicely.
Are you able to read us a page from it? I don't suppose you have one sitting there. Do you?
No, I would love to.
Damn.
I don't know where the hell I put it.
That's too bad.
God damn it, and we can't pause because it's live.
Well, there's a couple people watching. We could absolutely, if you want to grab it, you can. Right? Feel free.
The thing is, I don't know where it is.
Well, here's a picture. Okay, so yeah, here it goes. Right. Yeah, in fact, there was your keys in your pen. So
I was going to see if there was a picture of, sometimes they'll have a picture of inside with a page we could read, but they don't have one on Amazon. So.
One, the artist that did the work was amazing. She's also somewhat a mental health advocate and stuff, and so it's so good. I mean, the pictures alone, you don't even need the words. The pictures are so good.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah.
No, I want to
And
buy it.
kids are so curious, right? I mean, about everything. But for me as a psychiatrist, like I see this with my daughter, right? Because like she's like, "What do you do? Like, what's your job?" You know? And it's like I feel like if I was an orthopedic surgeon, it's easier to explain, right? Someone comes in with a broken leg, I put the bones back together, and it'd be like, "Oh, okay." But it's very interesting, and I see like so she just turned 6, right? And I see it all the time. Like she'll tell people, my mommy's a doctor. She helps people, with things in their brain, and like, but it's just interesting being able to explain to her that we have chemicals in our brain, and those chemicals affect how people feel and affect how people act.
Wait, we
and
have chemicals in our brain?
Right? But it's interesting, and so
The
they're
entire 1990s,
receptive.
I had
And
chemicals in my brain. Lots of
ones I was putting in there.
Yep.
Yeah, but I do think having a little one, obviously from a different perspective than you, Todd, but having a little one who is exposed to mental health, like she'll sometimes when I'm on work calls, like I'll have my phone on speaker sometimes, and she'll hear them talking on handover about things that are going on in the hospital or whatever, and they're curious and they want to know about it, and again, obviously, you do explain it differently to a 6-year-old than you would to a 16-year-old. But she gets it. And I love this one story where, so she was in kindergarten last year. And one of the things that I'll say to her a lot is, feelings don't last, right? Feelings change. They come, they go. I tell her to think of them like waves in the ocean, right? Feelings will come up and feelings will go down. And so we were doing drop off one day, and she had lots of, difficult drop off days in kindergarten. But this one particular day, she was in a good mood. She was fine. And there was this little boy who was having a complete tantrum / meltdown, and he was kind of backed himself into the corner of the fence, didn't want to go into school. His mom was frustrated trying to deal with him, and she just like walks over to him matter of fact, and she's like, feelings don't last, feelings come and go. You don't feel good right now, but it's not going to last. You'll feel better in a little bit.
I feel like there's another Morning Cup of Kindness episode right there.
Right? Yeah, but it's just funny. Like, so kids they get it, and I think sometimes we shelter kids more than we need to.
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she said, "Man up."
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding.
It was almost there, but yeah, then she took his lunch.
What happens to bitches?
Yeah. Took his lunch and beat him over the head with it.
I'll give you something to cry about. That's what my mom used to say.
I wish to God I'd never got the opportunity to say that to a kid. I never had any of my own, and stepkids, it was weird when I beat them up and whatever, right? So it was, anyway.
Anyway, about my book.
Yeah.
So I just want to. So I think you guys are trying to figure out like how I did it, but so the book is the kid. It's through the kid's perspective, and the mother is talking to the kid a lot. So it's sometimes my daddy gets sad, and so then it's like sometimes I get a stomach ache. So it's always referring back to a physical ailment for the kid so that he can relate. So it's like sometimes daddy even needs medicine. I needed medicine when I was puking my fucking guts out last weekend. No, I didn't say that, but sometimes I need medicine when I have a tummy ache, and daddy had to go to the hospital to get help from special doctors and nurses, just like the time my stomach was, I had to go see my doctor. And so it's always referring back to a physical ailment so that because like you say, kids aren't stupid. They can put two and two together. We don't give them enough credit. It's like, and the amazing thing about the book is, I don't think I've had a male buy it from me directly yet. Maybe online and stuff, but it's almost always a mother
for sure.
or a grandmother buying it for the family, or the wife is buying it, and that's something I never ever considered. Like in my mind when I was doing the book, it was like, I'm trying to help kids, understand and really normalize it, right? And just to make it normal, because it is normal. But I never considered how helpful it is for fathers to read the book, because I've had wives that bought it say, my husband read it to my kid, and I bawled my eyes out because he was starting to, he was putting two and two together, even like, oh, I don't have to man up. This is just a normal thing, right? So yeah, I never even considered what the effect would be to the parents or the mothers or the grandmothers or anybody. And
it's amazing.
So yeah,
it's amazing.
I'm not proud of a lot of things in my life, but I'm proud as hell of that book.
No kidding. And does it still? I don't ask you about the money and all that stuff, but does it still sell well? Like, is it still moving through, or like?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, I don't. The best, like, I'm not the business side of stuff. I'm terrible. So,
fair enough. Yeah,
and I don't.
I'm not really asking you about that. I'm just saying, is it still a popular thing? Are people still gravitating to it? Is what I mean. Right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
right,
people are still still liking it or still buying it. The crazy thing is with kids book, my cost is like $25 a book hardcover to print. So
that's crazy. Hey?
Since COVID, like it's just so I don't have, like, I can't just go to places and set up a table and try to sell the book because I don't have $5,000 to buy $200. So I just tell people to go onto Amazon because I don't have to do anything then.
Yeah, right. So we do all of our merch as print on demand as well, right? So and on that note, folks, right, go ahead and check out the new merch shop at theaduapodcast.com, right? We've got tons and tons of different items up there for you. T-shirts, hats, hoodies, all sorts of different crazy designs, right?
So to answer your question about the podcast.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I want to take a quick minute, and I want to tell you about another podcast because instead of inserting a commercial here, I'm just going to talk about it organically. So
wonderful.
Because a couple of things that you've said have been like, holy shit. You've heard me reference the 5-minute cup of kindness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or morning cup of kindness, I should call it. What I started this podcast a while back. It's kind of changed format, another show because I didn't have enough on my plate, right? Welcome ADHD to my life, right? Because that's, just when you think you might be at a breaking point, put a bit more on just to make sure, right? So, but no, it's been fun. We call it Morning Cup of Kindness. It's 5 minutes. It's supposed to be every day. I've kind of fallen off because I changed the format and I'm trying to get some people involved. I think you might be a great candidate for this. Well, I know you're a great candidate for this. Just the story about the hospital alone. So what we do, you can come on and you can advertise for a nonprofit or a fundraiser. All you got to do is tell a 5-minute story about kindness. And then you can take the last minute, the 6th minute, to talk about whatever fundraiser or nonprofit you want to bring up. Right.
Awesome.
And that's all. So if you got something that you're trying to get the word out about, you can come on the show. You can do that. It's super easy to do. If you come to the website, 808podcast.com, you can submit a video recording, or you can meet me in studio and we can do it that way. So it's a super, super easy way to do it in virtual studio, I should say. You don't have to fly from Tampa to Calgary, Alberta or something. But you just meet me in virtual studio, and you can help get the word out about your things. So I envision it being this kind of growing. There's a show called Morning Cup of Murder, and it's a top 0.5% podcast. 0.5.
Wow.
And getting from 10 to 9 is way harder than from 10 to 9 or from 90 to 10, right?
Yeah.
Getting from 5 to 0.5 is 100 times harder. So that's a massive show. Yeah. I think we can do better with kindness. That's what I think. Right? Kind of jack the name a little bit there, but I think it's indicative of what society's come to, that is so goddamn popular that people want to hear about murder first thing in the morning. You know what it is? It's you, Lisa. It's all women. It is all women. Right? Yeah. That whole genre, the true crime genre, it's all women.
I'm not gonna lie, I like it too a little bit.
Me too.
Yeah.
I like Morning Cup of Kindness too, though. So
yes,
it's
yeah. So Lisa came on most recently and did just a wonderful episode about her daughter recognizing somebody who was quite obviously in addiction and homeless, but recognizing and the suffering he was in, and it's a beautiful story. So I think we're not done. There's again another 5 minutes at least after this, right? But
yeah,
she told him man up and get a job.
Yeah. So,
she saves that for her peers.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my little commercial. Let's talk about your podcast.
So anyway, then COVID hit, and I was wanting to do more projects. I finished the book, and if you're like me with ADHD, it's like, yay, the project's done, and now I need more dopamine.
Do you know how many ADHD kids it takes to change a light bulb?
How many?
You want to ride bikes?
I love it.
Yeah.
I never told that one on air before, Lisa. You never
I
heard
don't
that?
think so. I've heard it, but I don't think it was on air that you've done it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Todd, I have to say, like the fact that you finished the book with your ADHD, like that's impressive.
That's impressive.
Well,
You know, you didn't just. You still
Didn't
did
even finish
it.
a cigarette.
Still
for
did
crying
it.
out loud.
Yeah.
Well, I had nothing else to do. Sitting at home, jobless.
Yeah. So podcast.
yes.
What happens here? Yeah.
So I finished the book. I was like, well, I want to do something else now. I've been kicking around the idea of a podcast for a while because I like listening to podcasts. I was like, I wonder what gear I need. I used to play in bands and stuff, so I had like microphones and computers and recording gear. I was like, and because I'd been advocating, I knew some people already kind of knew my name. I knew other people in the province that were advocates and stuff. So I was like, well, I have no lack of connections here to talk with people. So I thought, well, I'll do like 5 episodes. I'll make it just a series, a Saskatchewan-based thing. So the first few episodes it's all Saskatchewan people, and I made it,
By the way,
kind of
the show is, for those of you listening who didn't hear it in the beginning or forget, it's the Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. By the way, so
yeah, bunny hugs
and a bunny
mental
hug.
health.
Now we have to explain this to the rest of North America,
Yeah.
right? What a bunny hug is. In
Yes.
Saskatchewan, and only in Saskatchewan, a hoodie is called a bunny hug. So whatever play on words that is, and however we get to that, but so people know that why, like it's not actually a bunny hugging, because I'm sure that's what people picture, right? So
Well, and you've seen my logo, and it's a bunny hugging me.
yeah,
So.
I noticed. Yeah. That's for the Americans.
That's right. Yeah. People like the name, whether they knew what the hell a bunny hug was or not. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Right. I think it's genius. Personally, I absolutely love
good.
it. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I want a little nod to Saskatchewan, but anyway.
That's an inside joke, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did about 5 episodes, and I was like, nope, I like this a lot. So I just kind of kept going and kept going and kept going, and like I said, I'm not the greatest at the business end or the promotion end of stuff, but it's been growing, and I'm this winter I'm going to be doing a lot more. I'll be a lot more focused on the podcast and stuff. So yeah, I've been doing speaking gigs and the podcast, and trying to push the book a little bit here and there, and yeah, just I am my own brand, I guess, as they say. I don't know.
Tell us, what's a typical episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health?
Well,
if there is such a thing as a typical episode, right?
well, yeah. I mean, and by the way, there's something that bugs me. It's like I do have a ton of episodes about addiction, and I hate that you always have to say mental health and addiction. I wish you could just say mental health, because it's all the same goddamn thing, right? It's all connected.
Right.
It just it bothers me, but so anyway. Some episodes I'm talking with professionals. Some episodes I'm talking with people that are suffering. Sometimes it's people in recovery of addictions or mental health. Sometimes it's family members who have lost loved ones to mental health issues.
Who is this guy? Right? Jesus. Right?
Who, me?
Yeah. You say all the things, man. Like all the things. Like there's a lot of. 1 second.
I was so confused. What guy? Oh, he's got someone knocking on the door.
Mm-hmm.
His car's being towed.
But
Well,
yeah,
anyway.
you and Chuck have a lot in common.
Now we're good.
It's
Okay.
it's a lot in common, hey?
Yeah, like a ton.
Yeah.
Like a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I started a blog when I first got sober. My first kick at sobriety. It was like day 3 or 5. I had 7,000 views or something like that. It was just like nuts on Facebook. A lot of luck involved. But with that 7,000 views came a lot of people stuck around. So it's similar to your experience, right?
Yeah.
I got out of recovery and back in, I relapsed a couple times after that. And then Mom said, I was having a hard time with some trauma, some real hard time. I couldn't function day to day. And, Mom suggested maybe I should try that. And that was like a week later, I borrowed a Windows 7 laptop with no microphone, no headphones, no nothing, and started recording. That was January 27th.
Yeah.
That was my first episode of this
Just
year.
this past January.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's
So
amazing how
things have gone crazy because of the same things though that you're doing though, Todd. The family members.
Yeah.
It's about it's for every addict, and no, we don't. For every person suffering in addiction, how many people are affected?
Yeah.
Right. But they don't have the resources. Right. So when you say those things, when you bring those people on, that warms my heart. I love hearing that, right? So it's very few shows that do that. So that's, Dan's being one of them, the Hard Knocks Talks. He brings in that variety of people. It's not just recovery stories. There's a place for recovery stories. There really is. But, and on our show too, there is, right? Your recovery story, really. I just feel that if you're going to tell those, then we could do a better job of telling the rest of the story as well. And I love to hear that you're doing that. So, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for doing this. I mean, I am friends with a couple other mental health podcasters and recovery podcasters. And the thing is, like, there's no competition. We're all just big supporters of each other. And like you said,
right at the end of the
swap
day,
guests and whatever. It's like, we want the message out there. Like, we are trying to normalize this and stigma. Get people who you never know who's going to hear something that they didn't even know they needed to hear that day. Yeah. And that's all it is. And I think people appreciate sincerity and so
the odd tear, right?
Yeah. So I think that's what our listeners like is it's not okay. I don't want to say anything too controversial, but there's a lot of mental health podcasts out there where it's fluffy. You know what I mean? It's all about self-growth stuff, and which is important. I mean, that's all really great. Not everybody has been suicidal, but I think some people need to hear the grittiness, and it's not about exploiting or anything. It's just here's a fucking banana story, and you may relate. Sometimes it's not a banana story. Maybe it's just a common story. But
listen to this story about a mother whose daughter is in it right now, fighting every day, right? Yeah. Listen to her story, and because those ones specifically for me, the ones because my mom, right, right, and the bullshit she had to deal with and put up with, not even the not knowing, right? Because I kept myself away from my family, but it's the not knowing and the wonder and the all those things that I can't imagine, right? I call them all conscripted soldiers in the fight against addiction, right? Like they don't have a choice, and then when we relapse, they worry, and then when we come into recovery, they worry, and then we're like high, we're everybody be happy for me because I'm not high anymore, and then I get to go get high, and then I can come back and say everybody be happy for me, and the whole while everybody else is losing their fucking minds, right? Yeah. Like through all of it. And how come they're not getting the attention? How come their stories aren't being told? And how come people still have to feel like they're alone? It pisses me off. Yeah. Right? There's an interview coming up that I'm doing this weekend, hopefully, if all goes well. Her ex is very, very early recovery, like a week. Right? So when we first started talking, he was still in it. Her and her son are going to come on. But she's let him come and stay with them while he cleans up, and he's taking another kick and can, and not in a romantic way or anything, but she has had to hide that from her friends and family because they have told her they will not talk to her if she allows him back into her house. What in the actual fuck are we doing? Right? That is stigma you're going to punish the person for caring too much. You're going to punish the person for trying to help keep her fucking kid's dad alive.
Yeah. It's
my sister-in-law has gone through that too.
Right? I'll bet she has. Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes
it's stigma. It's all stigma.
It is stigma, but I mean, I've said this many times. As much as I suffered and had to deal with stuff, I would still rather be in the position I was than the position my wife or mother or father were in.
100 times over.
Like, to have my wife say, you can't stay here anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. That must have been the hardest fucking thing she's ever had to say to anyone in her life.
Right.
And so I mean, I get it. I get why some people are just like, you're just enabling him, or you're codependent and all this stuff. Like, it must be so fucking hard. It must be so hard to.
Right.
Where's that fine line of I'm trying to help them and okay, they just I can't anymore. I
Who's
can't.
to say, right? Who's to say where that line is?
Yeah.
Every person is so unique. Our everything about us is unique. And then you throw in our traumas, and you throw in our addictions, and you throw in the dynamic between him and her and him. And who's to fucking say what the right thing is at any given time? Right?
Yeah.
But just support the person for having to make the decision in the first place. Never mind what decision they made. You know,
That's right.
Yeah,
Like,
That's
true.
right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's one thing
get
to
fired
say
up about it, right?
I see what you're saying now, because it's one thing to say I'm cutting ties with him, but I'm also going to cut ties with you if you bring him back and try to help him. That's like the next level of
like that. Like what? And it happens all the time. And when it doesn't happen, often it's because the person had to keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Their friends and family have no idea about the hell they've gone through, because again, the stigma just keeps them, buttoning it up, and the shame is something. Fuck.
Yeah. But they're like,
Yeah,
oh,
and
he's
like,
just going to hurt you again, and then you're going to come running to us crying, and then we have to listen to you cry.
Oh, I'm sorry, your life is so fucking hard, right? Because you had to hear about the things.
I think even within the family loved one circle, it's so complicated. Like in my particular case, right? Like myself, my parents, my sister-in-law, we all had a similar approach and belief system around just trying to love my brother and being there for him when he was ready. But even then, I remember my sister-in-law calling me up at times and talking to me about stuff and saying, that she was thankful she had me to talk to, because, her family had at times taken the stance of like, they just didn't want to hear about my brother's stuff anymore. And then with my own parents, she would sometimes shield them because she knew that they were stressed. And so she didn't want to call them and talk to them about something, not because they wouldn't hear it, but because she was trying to protect them. And you know what I mean? Like, it's so messed up. Like, it's just
shitty waters to navigate, right?
Just crazy.
Actually, I told you before the episode, Todd, we did that Just the Tips Thursday thing.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody close to the show she actually kind of kicked off the whole Family Friday idea of having people. She had done a Memorial Monday with us, and then the very next day she ended up recording this other episode talking about how her husband was the mayor of a small town up north and turned into a crackhead and decimated their lives, and it was just like this fucking just wild story. But she tasked Scott and I to do a list. She gave us the list, things not to say to the spouse or partner of somebody in addiction. And the idea, like, you guys got to make it funny. I don't know, fuck, man, right? Like, can we do this? And he's like, I don't know, can we do this, right? We put some spin on it and had some, tried to make light of it, but while addressing the issues. But it's actually one of the best episodes we've ever done.
You sucked in helium and did it.
Fuck. Damn it. Monday morning quarterback over here, right? Where were you? No. It turned out to be just a wonderful episode, actually. In the end. But,
I bet.
Things not to say, right? Because it's just horrible, right? And the mothers, they're sitting around. Well, Nancy's off to med school, and fucking Johnny's, a football star, and my Ricky, he's, we don't know where he is. He might die tomorrow in an overdose because everybody else is nowadays, and how do you relate to other people? Right?
Yeah.
So I believe firmly that we need more and more people coming on and telling stories like this on your show, my show, all the shows, until it's normalized, and these people don't have to feel alone in something that they're not even choosing to be in, really, right? They're just conscripted into it. So
yeah, that's right. And I'm so tired of it's a choice thing. It's like, well, they choose to do it. It's like, how many people have said that have also dabbled in? I've dabbled in stuff.
I'm going to play my favorite ever. This is a Dr. Lisa quote. You're going to love this, my man.
Oh.
You're going to
you have it queued up?
Almost.
Okay.
As much as I ever have anything queued up, right?
I have to say, one thing about my in-laws, they were So, I'm getting emotional again. So my mother-in-law is currently in the cancer unit in Regina, and she's fighting pancreatic cancer, and she has been nothing but empathetic and incredibly accepting of me through everything she knows that I've been through and done. It's just been nothing but love from my in-laws, and I am so incredibly grateful. And I know that's probably a rarity that you get to have those in-laws in your life that will just
Absolutely, it is.
all they do is
I
care
would
about
think
you.
anyway. I mean, yeah.
But then
yeah,
also,
right.
I mean, your wife is obviously incredible, and
Yeah. Comes by
that's where she
honestly,
comes
apparently.
from, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So choices quote. Thank you for filling that in. That was a beautiful way to fill in the time. Well, I got that up out of the queue, so that was good teamwork there. Yeah. All right. Okay. Here, listen to this.
This whole what we're talking about right now with choices, right? And people sort of pathologizing people with addiction as, well, you made the choice. This is a consequence of your choice. It came up in a conversation with an ex-boyfriend of mine, somebody who hadn't, had no lived experience with addiction. This is a guy who he had partied, he'd done ecstasy, he'd done cocaine. Like, how as a teenager did my brother make any decision or choice different than you did? He had made the same choices you did. He felt like he was young, he was a teenager, he was invincible, as a lot of teenagers think they are. The difference is I think that my brother was predisposed to this suffering. For him, those decisions were catastrophic. And I think other people are able to make the same choices and decisions, but they're able to walk away one day. So to me, it's like, how do we blame people who end up suffering in this disease for making the same choices that so many people make?
Right? Yeah, I'll give that a clap. I still, every time I hear it, it's profound truth.
Yeah.
Right? It's well said on that one, Lisa. Yeah. Is that something that you learned and used in context, or is that something that came to you, that analogy, like?
It kind of evolved. I mean, in some ways, like, thankful for the conversation that I had with that ex-boyfriend, because it did sort of evolve, like in us talking about my brother's situation, and then also as I got to know him and I knew his past, and I knew he'd kind of, he'd had his own wild days, right? And I think one day this light bulb just went off and was like, well, but you did the same things he did. It's just you were one of the lucky ones. And it's like, in some ways I feel like kids are playing Russian roulette with their lives, right? You don't know what your genetic load is based on, your personal mental health history, your trauma, whatever all the different contributing factors are. And I just remember one day saying to him, I'm like, but so you did the same stuff my brother did, and you're one of the lucky ones. And so you can't sit here and tell me it's his choices, because you and him made the same choices, and so many kids.
That's so beautifully said. So beautifully said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ultimately, it's just a simple observation that,
Right.
like, why can we see it but you can't? Like,
Yeah.
because he keeps choosing to use it. Like, no.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
you think he likes doing this? You think like,
Yeah.
it's
right.
no longer a
Do you
choice
think a
at a certain
fentanyl
point.
addict said to themselves, I can't wait someday to be shitting myself and screaming in pain because
Yeah.
I don't have my drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said that, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of
Yeah.
micro choices is how I like to explain it to people that are, to the muggles, right? It's just all these little micro choices that got you there. No, there was never a choice per se, right? It was a left instead of a right. And for me personally, my lifestyle, I was a half second away from that many, many times over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly can't judge. I can't judge at all. But,
Well, I'm glad you're here, buddy.
me too. Yeah. I gotta say, man, like, this has been an incredible. We're at an hour and a half now, so I should probably cap her off, right?
Yeah, I got to poop. Speaking of pooping, no, I don't.
No.
I don't know. I have two sons, so poop humor is big in my house.
Fair enough. Boys will be boys. Yeah. The word poop makes me want to dry heat. The smell of it, it's going to happen every time, right? Like, I'm a horrible. I'll tell you a quick story. I said
About
quick too
poop.
many times to make it quick, didn't I?
Yeah.
Anyway,
About poop.
so, I'm 17 years old, 18 years old, looking after my friend's daughter, like a little baby that had been left alone with her for a few hours. and it happens. I waited for my girlfriend to come across Calgary an hour and a half on the bus with my hand on the change table and holding this baby on there, going, blah, 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 right? For an hour and a half.
Oh my
Until somebody showed up to change her for me. Because I just, that was my whole life has been like that ever since. Right. So, yeah.
And now that kid has some weird
Is
fetish.
like traumatized, has no idea, right? Has no idea. Yeah.
Or a weird
it's
fetish.
Actually funny. I met that girl for the first time in like 25 years when I got back to Calgary. She has no idea about this story. I haven't told her about it. Right. But it was like, I looked at her and thought, fuck, I fucked you up somehow. Like I really did. Like I had to, right? Yeah. So
Well,
anyway.
God bless you.
Right. I got to say, I think you'll be invited back on, Tom, the weekend ramble here. It's always a different guest,
Do I have to
we
accept?
like to panel sometimes. You don't have to accept, but I don't know if you've heard, but I'm kind of a big deal. I'm not no, actually.
Okay. I
does
can
bring us to
bullshit for hours, man. Anytime.
I have no doubt. Right? Yeah. What we like to do sometimes is just panel on different things. And we've had some like amazing conversations on the show, right? Attica J, who is a harm reduction worker in Vancouver on the downtown east side. Very passionate about what she does. She's got a nonprofit as well, the J Health Initiative. She is going to come on, and I told her after our conversation, Lisa, the other day, I said, you're going to come on as a probationary co-host. She couldn't be on this weekend because she's still on vacation. I said, you're going to be a probationary co-host, whatever the fuck that means. But I said, whatever, right? I just want to make myself sound important. But we're going to bring her on and see how that goes. I think it'll go great, but we like to have diverse opinions on here. We've had, Devin McGuire, who's probably still my favorite. Well, now my second favorite guest. Now that you're sitting in front of me, right? Till next weekend. There'll be some others.
Right.
Right?
ADHD man.
Run ride bikes. Yeah. Anyway,
You're my new favorite because you're new.
brings us to my favorite part of the show, though, Todd, and that's Daily Gratitudes. Today's Daily Gratitudes are brought to you by Yatra Treatment Centers in Phuket, Thailand. They are a clinic run by clinicians, not a business run by businessmen. And they know that where addiction is the smoke, trauma is the fire. Learn more at yatracenters.com. That's YATRACENTRE.com. And now here's your Daily Gratitudes. I never told you about this coming into it because I have forgotten literally 90% of the episodes to let my guests know that I'm going to ask them for Daily Gratitudes, but I have a feeling you're not going to have a hard time coming up with any. So you got a few for me?
Well, my heart is heavy right now with my mother-in-law. I mentioned it. You were just talking about doing another panel, and I was like, yeah, that sounds so amazing. Every weekend I'll do it, but then I was like, no, wait a minute. We never know from day to day what's happening, and so I'm so grateful that I have just the most beautiful people in my life. That I live in a town who cares about its community and supports each other. And I'm just so grateful to be here talking to both of you today. It's just, I'm so blessed, and I forget to do this. So I'm grateful that you asked me to think of something I'm grateful for, because I forget to do it once in a while. And it really grounds me. So thank you.
Great. You're welcome. And that gratitude goes both ways for sure. Lisa, I'm sure you've got at least one, maybe a couple.
Yeah, my brother is 5.5 months sober. And I think, the other
23 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Just putting it in context for Todd. Right. So
yeah.
Nice.
And he was here last weekend. He came back to Calgary for a weekend and stayed at my parents' place. And there was one night that I came over, and it was just me, my brother, my parents. And we were all saying, when was the last time it was just the four of us? But I think the best part of that whole weekend, and I've got it on video, and I don't even know what he was laughing about. Apparently it was something my dad did or said, or I don't know. But he started laughing, and he laughed to the point of almost being in tears, couldn't stop laughing. And so to see him like that was wicked, was awesome. So I'm grateful for that moment. Yeah.
It's probably something to do with poop.
Probably. Doesn't it? It's always poop, right?
Fucking ruin it with poop. God damn it. Ruin it.
I love a theme.
Anyway. The final gratitude, guys, it goes out to you, the listeners and watchers. Now, I got to say that. I always forget to say the watchers. Supporters, as it were. Anybody that's paying attention. We are now on officially every social platform as of 6 a.m. this morning. So if you see the logo, like, share, comment, please do the things that you know we need to do to make the algorithms happy and continue to go on this crazy growth adventure that we've been on. Every time you do any one of these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to make a humble living spreading the message. The message is this. If you're in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start that lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, do whatever the hell it is you need to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. And if you are the loved one of somebody who's suffering an addiction right now, and just taking the time to listen to this rather long weekend ramble, you just take one more minute out of your day and text that person, let them know they're loved. Use the words.
You are loved.
Yeah.
A little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings it back.
My body's getting cold, my life is running low. Feel me falling, my life is running out. I pray I make it now, but if I don't, it will be okay. I'll find you another day, and I'm not scared to go. It will be okay. I'll find you another way, and I'm not scared to go, because when I die, I'll be happier in another life. I'll be a ladybug